Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is TCGplayer.com. I am Conley Woods, and this week we are working on an active brew. So a couple weeks ago, I put some deck lists up and asked for people to vote on what decks they wanted. One of the concepts in there was a clue deck, and this was not what I had in mind. But this was a variation that I eventually thought of while I was kind of like half asleep, and so I wrote down this idea, and I've not gotten to play with it yet. So I figured, if nothing else, this is a good learning experience. So why not take this through some games and just kind of learn? This is literally the first iteration of this deck. No modifications have been made to it yet. And the point here being that this is a very off-the-wall brew with a very off-the-wall concept in terms of how it wants to win the game, but we're going to go for it anyway. So as you could probably tell, there's a clue/investigate kind of premise here. We're trying out weird stuff like like Erdwall Illuminator. I forgot about the picture. That's not the picture. It made me laugh. It looks like you guys remember when you were little kids, roly polies. I don't know. Maybe you still have them. We don't really have many roly polies anymore. But back in the day, roly polies were the thing. This looks like a flying roly poly. So we have him. We have Confront the Unknown. We have Tireless Tracker. We have a couple magnifying glasses, which are also used for mana. We have a Second Harvest, which copies all of our clues. We have Tamio's Journals, Confirm Suspicions. So quite a few different little clue things in here. The big ones are the journals, the Illuminator, and I guess either of these fill in for journal. But basically, you want to get Illuminator plus one of these 9 cards. That will quickly start ramping up your clue production. Clue production does a couple things for us. One, we could obviously just draw cards with it, totally fine. Drawing cards will pump up Tyler's Tracker, which is perfectly fine. He's just a good win condition, go to town, if he doesn't die, of course. Drawing or putting clues into play will also fuel your Tamio's Journal to tutor up things. You tap it, you sacrifice 3 clues, you tutor up something, and you can do that the turn you play it if you have enough clues. Building up clues, most importantly, works with Confront the Unknown here, which gives +1/+1 for each clue you have and investigates first. So the way we're trying to win the game is ultimately casting one of these on Erdwall Illuminator or Tireless Tracker is those are like the obvious things. So there are 8 creatures in the main deck. But the kind of ace in the hole that we're actually going for is this Lumbering Falls down here. Lumbering Falls is hexproof, which is especially important. It's also a land, so it basically can't be interacted with until the turn we're going to go off. And on the turn we're going to go off, in theory, we activate this hexproof land. We confront the unknown. Maybe we Second Harvest or something. We confront the unknown on our Lumbering Falls, making sure we get through because we have Engulfed the Shores or something first to bounce all creatures. And then we get through with our Lumbering Falls, confront the unknown for a bunch of damage. Bada bing, bada boom. That's the off the wall idea. So with that in mind, with the premise of let's confront the unknown, I kind of started working backwards, and I was like, what kind of deck would want to do this? And right up front, obviously, you think of an aggro strategy where you're just trying to confront on a guy and just get in there. And while that works, it really doesn't capitalize on clues so much as it capitalizes on a giant growth that can scale. What I wanted to do was actually capitalize on clues, and by doing that, I think you stretch out games. You want games to go really long because you have a bunch of 2-mana cantrips, which are naturally good in a long game, and then you also you need time for your clues to build up. So both those things imply that you want to be playing a slower deck, usually something controlling that wants to grind the game out. So I think the best control card in the format right now, if you're able to play it, excuse me, is Engulf the Shores. It's just extremely powerful for the amount of mana that it costs, and for obviously you need to be playing a heavy amount of islands, but there are a lot of decks that use this to great effect right now. There's the Sphinx's Tutelage deck that's trying to mill people out. There's the Fever Dreams deck that sometimes doesn't even play the Sphinx's Tutelage and just tries to burn you out with it, but he uses Engulf the Shores. Engulf the Shores asks a lot in that you need to play a ton of islands, so you can't just play it in every deck. But if you can play this, I think is extremely powerful. So we're trying to maximize this card specifically because our deck is not trying to kill all creatures. We're really just trying to buy time to a point where we can start chaining off Time Walks and then go for our win. So speaking of Time Walks, I'm going to move straight over here to that. I'm trying out Part the Water Veil for a couple reasons. One, it scales really nicely with all of our per turn things. So Magnifying Glass is essentially a per turn thing. Tyler's Tracker is a per turn thing. Erdwall Illuminator is a. Oh, is it Entwall or Erdwall? No, it's Erdwall. That's what I thought. I just thought my monitor may look like Entwall for a second. Erdwall Illuminator I would call a per turn thing. Tamio's Journal is definitely a per turn thing. So kind of like Planeswalkers, Part the Water Veil is going to work with all those things in just a good way. Give you an extra turn. That's fine. It also has Awaken 6, which I don't expect to necessarily use all the time, but it is an additional creature, so we can just win games by just making gigantic things. Also put 6+1/+1 counters on Lumbering Falls, which then gets Hexproof for 4 mana, so that's a pretty cool little combo. But yeah, mostly here I'm trying, the idea being that like you can chain them with Tamio's Journal pretty easily. Like imagine I have a Tamio's Journal, a Erdwall Illuminator, and a Tireless Tracker in play. That is per turn a minimum of 3 clues. 4 if you have an Evolving Wilds in there. So that alone, per turn, you just get to part the Water Veil, possibly getting ahead if you're grabbing Evolving Wilds. You just get to literally pump up your Tireless Tracker because you're sacrificing clues, get in with your Erdwall Illuminator because it flies, and produce a clue with Tamio's Journal, activate Tamio's Journal for part the Water Veil, and cast it. You could just do that turn after turn after turn without any other help. Obviously, those 3 cards being in play is the help that you need, but those are all just like normal cards you're just going to cast and they're just going to do things. You're not necessarily looking to get that combo, but it's not that difficult to set up a 3 clue per turn thing. Once you add a Magnifying Glass in there, it gets even easier because you can just investigate for 4. This is kind of the slowest of everything, but it's also an artifact that produces mana, so it gets us to Tamio's Journal on turn 4, which is nice. So it's got a couple, like a multi-use, if you will. So yeah, that's kind of like the base skeleton. Everything else here is mostly to aid us. We have Anticipates to make sure we find our specific pieces a little bit better. We have a couple one-ofs. Second Harvest, only in here to duplicate our clues. It's a great card, I think, to just grab the Tamio's Journal in the late game, so it's a one-of. Obviously, we can find it with an Anticipate or something like that. 1 Day's Undoing. The idea here being there's a couple of different things you can do. One, you can cast Part the Water Veil for 6 mana. Because that does not end the turn, you can then, after Part the Water Veil, cast Days Undoing, and you'll have a fresh hand of 7 cards. The turn will end, and you'll go to your new turn with a brand new. So you'll be the first one to use your new hand. Your opponent, if they were tapped out, they're still going to be tapped out. So you can actually, that's one of the few cases where you can actually get a Days Undoing at sorcery speed to benefit you. So that's kind of a cool little combo in here. We also have a couple negates to back up a couple of confirmed suspicions. Not a ton of counter magic. This is obviously great for putting a bunch of clues into play. Negates in here mostly to protect our combo. If we're trying to go for it with a Tireless Tracker or Erdwall Illuminator. Usually you're going to go for it on Illuminator more just because it flies. But you know, if they have no creatures in play, it doesn't really matter. This guy can get into. And that is really the core of the main deck. I wanted to keep it as simple as possible and just try to execute on this game plan. There's 25 lands, which should be plenty, especially with 2 Magnifying Glasses and 4 Anticipates in the deck. The deck's not even that expensive. Obviously, the Part the Water Veils in here can get expensive, but you're happy to cast them for 6 mana a lot of the time, too. And then there's a million cantrips in here thanks to all the clues. So I'm a little worried about Confront the Unknown being dead too often, but in the early game. But my thinking is that people are never going to play around it because they don't know better. It's going to save something from a burn spell way often, and like especially with these 2 guys because this has 2 toughness or 3 pretty easily when you with confront. Or I'm sorry, 4 with confront because if you count the clue this makes plus the clue from this, that's already +2/+2. And then this has 3 toughness, so it goes up to 4 with the confront, and then 5 because it gets an extra clue when you cast Confront because this just naturally copies it. So both these creatures are looking at 4 or 5 toughness with the Confront in hand, meaning they're going to dodge most burn spells, and most -X like Grasp of Darkness, for example. You can even dodge that. So you can use that as a protection spell, but primarily I'm going to imagine you want to hold this for late game. If you draw too many of them, you could cycle them away. You can always target an opponent's creature just to get a clue token if you need. So keep that in mind. The mana base is very simple. 1 forest, 12 islands, That is 13, yeah, and then 12 other lands. And with 4 Evolving Wilds, which are usually going to grab islands, but occasionally will grab the forest, of course. 4 Lumbering Falls and 4 Yavimaya Coast. Super cut and dry, super simple. Maximize your islands. It does mean we're maybe not going to be able to cast Tireless Tracker on turn 3 all the time, but we have other cards to do stuff with. We have 13 green sources if you count Evolving Wilds, so we'll be able to do it in most games, but all the rest of our green cards are very late game. Second Harvest and Confront the Unknown, we don't need that early. We do need a bunch of green to be able to activate Lumbering Falls and cast Confront the Unknown, but I imagine in most cases we're going to be late enough in the game that I can achieve that through time walks and stuff. If that is an issue, that's something in the future we'll definitely need to address. So you really need 3 green the turn you're going off, but I think we'll be able to get there. Sideboard is just a bunch of cool stuff to back us up here. So we have 2 Sphinx of the Final Word and 1 Guy's Revenge, which all kind of serve the same role. They're the 7-drop that Control can't deal with that we can cast Confront the Unknown on and win. Sphinx makes Confront the Unknown uncountable, so it's a little bit better. But Guy's Revenge has haste, so it's kind of cool there. It's a green spell, so we can target it. The other 2 negates. 1 Crush of Tentacles to grab with Tamiyo's Journal. It bounces our clue tokens, so you don't want to use this too much. But you can Tamiyo's Journal away, your clue tokens, and then Crush. You could also, end of turn, Tamiyo's Journal away 3 clue tokens, untap Tamiyo's Journal away the new clue tokens, and then cast Crush. 2 Profaner of the Dead, just as additional Engulf the Shores against really aggressive decks. You play this and you sacrifice itself, usually is my game plan. 1 more Confirm Suspicions, just as a counter magic. 2 Pulse as some random life gain in here to supplement the 4 Graph Mole, which is the real big life gain. We definitely want 4 of this against all aggro decks. This Empty the Shores, Profaner of the Dead should hopefully be enough against them. We'll double check though. And then the 1 Guy's Revenge. So pretty simple. I think it's going to be fun. It's a different deck. I don't think anyone's really done anything like this, so we're going to give it a shot, and we'll be right back joining some 2-mans. This is TCGplayer.com. I'm Conley. Right back with the brew.